What's going on, YouTube? Rukari back with another episode of the Minotaur Hotel, where we're about to have a very deep conversation with Asterion, I think. Really wish I could give him a shirt.
I apologize if I forget what you have said tonight, Sir Rukari. Sometimes I can barely hear anyone.
What do you mean?
Between my ears, sometimes it is all rain and wind and roaring thunder that never strikes. Sometimes I can't hear anything at all. I apologize that you had to deal with that, like some unmanly, unruly calf.
Honestly, it sounds like some kind of panic attack or anxiety attack or PTSD, because a lot of those things can really affect, or even honestly just sensory overload, your ability to process incoming information and respond to it.
I apologize if I am lacking sense. I tire of myself in these states. By the 12, I have had long enough to learn not to be bowled over by living. Yet, living can be too loud for me, perhaps. I apologize.
There's no reason to. You did nothing wrong, and even if you did, you would have my forgiveness whether or not you asked for it. Are you feeling better now?
A little.
You scratch the top of his head. He does not shy away.
Still, I apologize. I shouldn't have let my anger take root.
I mean, you had every right to be angry. If I was in your position, I might have gone berserk. No idea how I'd have acted. In that regard, you did well. But be honest. Is your anger unjustified? Clement did horrible things to you. You have every right to be angry, Asterion.
No, I have no right to it, Rukari. Try as you might to tell me otherwise, I know my place. What Clement did was only a return to form. The prisoner should not feel anger at the jailer for doing his duty.
But if not for you, then what about the guests he kicked out? Can't you be angry on their behalf? Asterion does not answer. He chews on his own tongue and looks away, but glimpses of emotion and thought flash behind his eyes. You let him be, and when he leans his weight on your hand, you renew your scratching. Gather the bull, gather the man, gather the friend unto himself. You lean back on the couch and close your eyes for a minute. Just a few minutes. Then, if he's feeling well and being left alone doesn't give the impression of being abandoned, and if he doesn't want to stay here in the living room, if he's not too drowsy, if, beyond a shadow of a doubt, he will be fine. He's asleep. Oh, sleepy baby. He's just a little guy dealing with so much stuff. Can I please put pants on him again? Familiarity vanquishes shame. Asterion wakes before you, head still resting upon your lap, just as dawn breaks and slips in through the window. Wordless, he accepts that the charade is gone. There is no need to self-flagellate over this kindness. In fact, it would be ungrateful, indecent perhaps, to make a scene out of it. No, this mercy he must enjoy. He stays in place, still in silence so as not to wake you, and closes his eyes once more. Nary does the memory of the previous night cross his mind. But this bastard! Later in the morning, while Asterion feeds the hearth's flames, you take over manning the reception. This allows you to meet Jean as he checks out. Rukari, you and Asterion are fine hosts indeed. In all my years as a courtier, seldom have I seen such hospitality. Most people would just have me do my job and be off, but not you, no. You took me and all these people in, and you treated us like family. I understand now how true your words were, that this is a place for the lost, to give them a home. You're doing an amazing service here. Still don't have your accent pinned down, but I'm hoping you leave me alone. I really wanted you to be like Hermes or something cool, but instead you're just this asshole. Thank you. You're too kind. I'll make sure to tell Asterion you had a good time, and he'll be just as glad as I am. Just glad to see you go. You should, yes, but I must also apologize for my actions. I don't know what was in that package, but judging from your faces last night, it seemed to be an upsetting matter. I regret bringing sorrow to your home. Look, don't worry, Jean. It is a complicated matter, but you shouldn't feel any responsibility for it. Even so, it is unfortunate and unkind of me to repay your hospitality in this manner. I cannot allow things to end like this. I have a proposal for you. I couldn't help noticing that you seem to be understaffed. As you may guess, I travel a lot, and I come across all sorts of wanderers. If you want, I could keep an eye out for possible employees. I can spread the good news about this place. Well, that would be very kind of you. We really could use a few extra hands. Majestic, is there anything pressing you that you can use some help with? If you give me a rough idea of what you need, it'll be easier to find someone who can get the job done. You think about John's question. What are some positions you need to cover? The lounge has been a lot more hectic lately. With all the new guests coming in, Kota is getting help from the kobolds, but he's still having a hard time handling both the kitchen and counter duties. Okay, so we've got a boar-looking fellow. Not to mention you're getting a little sick of ramen and miso soup every other day. You could use a cook. I could never get sick of ramen. Are you crazy? Oh, puppy boy! Taking in everyone in need without discrimination could also be potentially be dangerous. As Robert demonstrated, just about anyone can enter the hotel with next to no opposition, and this may prove to be an issue if the next guest is not as affable as he is. Not to mention, employees sent to explore the labyrinth would feel a lot safer with someone reliable among them. You could use a watchdog, one that can keep people safe both in the hotel and while exploring the valley. Better yet, if he's good company. I want the dog. Another issue with the growing number of employees is the need to handle everyone's salaries. So far, you've been paying your employees in precious gems generated by the labyrinth, but you could be endangering them by making them carry such valuable items when they leave the hotel. A financer could take care of this matter, as well as handling the flow of currency in and out of the hotel and securing materials which it can't generate. Elephant dude, okay. Listen, I'm sure the cook and the financer are great, but I want the dog. Don't get me wrong, Robert seems to be a really nice guy, but I think some of our other guests would feel safer letting a demon in if there was someone on security. I'll keep my eyes peeled. Seeing a place like this prosper would warm my heart. But before I go, there are two final things. First, would you be so kind as to give me your phone number so we can keep in touch? Of course, just hand me your phone, I'll type it in. John offers you a scratched, dust-covered smartphone from the early 2010s. It's already displaying its new contact screen. You input your number, but when it comes time to put in your name, you can't help cracking a smile as a devious idea arises from the depths of chaos. You could, perhaps, who knows, maybe put in a silly name? I'm not gonna just use my name. I want to pick something else. What do you write on Jean's phone? Okay. Oh geez, this is too much power. I should have just chosen to put my phone. Asterion X Rukari Part. There we go. A smile takes over Sean's face as soon as he sees the screen. That is a curious nickname, Rukari. It has a nostalgic ring to it. No, it doesn't, but it's... I couldn't help myself. It's the only thing I could think of in the moment. Don't judge me. But enough dawdling in the past. I still have another subject I want to bring up with you. I regret my comments implying you and Asterion were an item. That was uncalled for and out of place. I just made that my phone contact name, sir. Oh, that. No harm, no foul, Jean. Again, did you read my phone contact name? Thank you. It is good to know I didn't leave any soft feelings behind. That said, there is one comment of mine I cannot regret, and which, in fact, I will stress regardless of how unwelcome it may be. I am sorry to make assumptions, but if the two of you ever develop feelings for each other, you should not be deterred by the fact that he's, well, a Minotaur. Really, Mr. Clement, you don't need to... I mentioned it last night, I think. I had a son who was born special. Oh my god, are you Storm's dad? You're Storm's dad, aren't you, you son of a bitch? I wish I had a camera to turn to. I had a son who was born special, Rukari. As a father, I feared for him. I loved my boy, but he was the joy of my life. But could others see his beauty and kindness as I did? Would he ever find love? I'm projecting, I know, but Asterion is different in his own way, and that should be no impediment for love. Sorry if this offends you. I'm not really sure what to think of what you said, but I can appreciate the sentiment. I don't think his looks should be an issue either. And yes, he and I are friends, but there's a lot more to the story. For starters, we're also business partners. In the instance that Asterion and I did, let's say, have affections for each other, that'd be very unprofessional. Besides, I don't know a thing about his sexuality, and it's really not any of my business. To top it off, I'm not sure he'd even be interested in a relationship with anyone, period. I see. If neither of you has any interest, then that's it. End of story. Story. I don't know. There's that weird thing that in French where you kind of swallow your R's, but what about you being co-workers? Didn't you say last night the both of you own the hotel? Are you familiar with couples who keep a business together? If memory serves, the Americans call them mom and pop stores. In this case, it'd be pop and pop, yes, but it's the same thing. You really are quite persistent, aren't you? More than you can ever imagine. Well, I do appreciate the sentiment, Jean. I can see that you care. Probably a little too much. But in the end, it all goes back to what Asterion and I would want, and honestly, I have a hard time imagining he'd be interested in romance. Would you be, though? Me? With Asterion in particular? Of course! Oh, okay, now you're getting a little invasive. Oh, please, entertain this one last question. Let me rephrase it. For the sake of the argument, let's assume that all stars align, that Asterion both leans that way and harbors certain intentions towards you. Would you, shall we say, reciprocate? Do I actually get to answer? Look, Jean. If you want to know if I could be in a relationship with him, the answer is yes. I'd probably go for it. I do feel a great deal of affection for him, and maybe if a bunch of things just sort of fell into place, that could one day become something more. But that's not the point. Because he's my friend first and foremost, I understand that romance isn't what he needs right now, and I'm uncomfortable being probed about the idea of pushing myself on him. The things are fine the way they are. That's my final word on the matter. I see. That is a very thoughtful answer indeed. I am sorry to have behaved so importunately, Rukari? I know it's rude. However, for what it's worth, you have made this father quite glad. I keep thinking back to my son. Were he still alive, I'd be very happy if you and he were friends. The world needs more people like you. Okay, so probably not Storm's father, but I got my hopes up there for a second. But enough dawdling. Time to go, my friend. Have a nice week. Guess just had a son with some disability, but still. For a second there, I was really like... After seeing Jean off, you head to the office to plan the activities for the day. You can now go talk to Robert in the lounge. You can select this activity in the daily agenda screen. Okay, we should probably, actually do some work. I'd love to keep working on the whole Asterion project, but we should get some RN... Oh, I can't send Asterion out. Interesting. Why is this? I'm very confused. Why are you mad? Okay, danger level is fine with these two, although... How bad is it? I can't send him out. Oh, no, I literally can't send him out. Right. Okay, so, I mean, we'll get some contract work done. Let's see, what projects are we potentially working on? If we get enough tech, we can do the mythical gym, and if we get enough contract, we can do the poolside bar for the swimming pool. I feel like I kind of want the gym. But that also means I'm down a person, you know? If I'm not working on their project. It's like, I can have Luke. I can have Coda here. Maybe we just let this guy survey. He'll find raw materials. And that way we'll get some contract and some tech going. Okay. And then I kind of want to talk to Robert. I already forgot what voice I gave him. I think I gave him a real gravelly... Oh, customize Asterion. For the love of God, let me customize this boy back. You need... I can give you just suspenders. That's interesting. I like your 40s outfit. Your 40s outfit is cute. Can I give you jeans with it? I guess I can't. And I don't... I feel like the armband... Well, I guess it's covered by a shirt anyways. Hey, your neckerchief. You look adorable. You're so precious. Okay. We're gonna talk to Robert in the lounge and see if we can recruit him, I guess. That seems like a reasonable plan. He's new. He's interesting. Ever since Robert had arrived at the hotel, he had claimed one of the tables in the lounge as his own. He would spend hours there reading, seemingly paying no attention to the rest of the guests. In return, the others didn't bother him. They would throw curious glances at him, but not hold them for very long, not wanting to disturb the demon. One must wonder if he feels lonely, seeing as the both of you are available. You elect to spend some time with him. There are a few questions eating away at you. Hi, Robert.
Hello, Rukari. I hope you're having a pleasant afternoon.
I am, yes, and I hope I'm not being insensitive, but would you be okay with answering a few questions?
I suppose it's only fair. Asterion did entertain my questions about his culture, so I should follow his example. Plus, I know how curious mortals are. I may not be able to answer everything, but ask away. I don't like that look you're giving me.
For starters, I want to know a bit about where you're from. I assume it's hell?
Hell, now that is more complicated than you may imagine. Pardon the pun, but afterlife affairs are nothing short of labyrinthine. I am from a hell. There are many, you see, and each one is different in its own way. There are the ancient ones, Sheol and Hades, for instance, and many more which came to be over the ages. This includes what most would expect out of the current monotheistic belief systems. There is no single afterlife and no single hell. The one I belong to is a recent one, perhaps the youngest of all hellish realms. It may surprise you, but it's only existed since the 1940s.
What belief systems created a hell in the 1940s? Oh, I didn't expect that. Least of all that there'd be such a, let's say, young hell. If you don't mind me asking, what's it like there?
Wretched, as one would expect, but not in the predictable ways. You see, the hell I'm from is called Nuremberg, and our jurisdiction encompasses crimes of scale.
Oh, it's the World War II hell. Got it.
The 20th century brought about unprecedented potential for harm, you see. Nowadays, hundreds of thousands of lives can be harmed irreversibly with a single click. The traditional afterlives were ill-equipped to deal with those matters. The chain of cause and effect is too long, the attenuating circumstances too important. And so, Nuremberg was created to judge and house both the perpetrators of crimes of scale and their victims, if they were robbed of the conditions that would grant them salvation, that is. To put it bluntly, one can be so massacred by circumstances that they never stood a chance. The perpetrators toil so their victims may yet achieve salvation. A very unorthodox hell. If that's not enough to assuage your worries, you should know my role in Nuremberg is not unsightly. I am a prosecutor. I prosecute criminals of scale and by extension defend the souls of those they harmed. Now, Rukari, do you still have questions?
I do, but I don't want to bother.
It's no bother. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. It's just that I'm curious about Hades in particular. Could you tell me more about it?
Hades, as in the ancient underworld realm of Greek legend. What do you want to know about it?
I mean, I'm generally fascinated about it, and I wonder what happened to it. Does it still exist?
Oh, yes, no doubt about that. An afterlife realm like that is very stable. Gods and divinity in general require worship. Many of the old gods have disappeared as a consequence of their dwindling followings. Which is why afterlife realms are so strong, you see? As long as their population worships their god, the realm remains sustainable. I am not privy to any special knowledge about Hades, however. I know it exists, and I know it's doing well, and as always, none can escape from it. That said, since there are no more worshippers, I don't think new souls are accepted into it. The gates closed long ago. Unless you are friends with Karen, that is.
Of course, the eternal fairy, Ferry, of the damned. Afterwards, Robert tells you about the books he's been reading, and then you go on with your day. I'm intrigued, at the very least. Let's check it on the R&D team. Your R&D team made some progress, but no project was completed. Did you find anything interesting, Coda? Exploration team. We found 3 raw materials, and that's really it. Okay. Oh, shit. I paused to take a drink, thinking it was going back to the next screen, and now Asterion's talking.
I am fine. Really, I am.
The air around Hestia's fire smells like sunlight on a carefree day. Asterion's fur, warmed by it, takes on the soft scent of dust, sweat, and salt water. You kneel beside him to watch as his latest sacrifice is taken by the sacred flame. You place a hand on his knee. As your warmth seeps through the Minotaur's clothing, he slouches his shoulders and releases his held breath. Listen, buddy, I'm always here for you. His hand settles atop yours, fingers splayed like a child too tired to make any attempt at being tidy.
Thank you for last night, however. You helped me to settle all the thoughts galloping inside my head.
You're welcome. You drape an arm over Asterian's shoulder, or as much of his step-wide back as you could cover. By the tips of your fingers alone, you pull him close. He leans until his head rests against yours, a horn only just touching the back of your skull. Close as you are, you can't help but notice that the smell of sunlight comes not from the fire, but from the Minotaur's warm fur. But peace cannot last. A pair of sticky feet plap up to you and Asterion. He grasps Asterian's index finger and tugs on it. It's Gruggy. Asterion! Master Asterion!
Yes, Gruggy?
The lyre! Can you play it for us? Zapito wants to dance.
I would love to, but I'm afraid my songs do not go well with dancing.
But the kobold cannot appreciate such things as mood or context. Even a funereal dirge can be a real toe-tapper to the untrained ear. Besides, the Minotaur's plin-plons are sweet enough on their own. Surely the little dear reasons to himself dancing will only enhance them. Gruggy tugs on Asterian's finger again. Please? You can't ignore the little guys. You and Asterion exchange a glance. Together you get up and return to your quarters to retrieve the Minotaur's lyre. On the way there, each of you hold one of Gruggy's hands. As though he were your own child, you lift him up a few inches from the ground and swing him gently to and fro. His delighted giggling patters through the infinite hallways of the hotel, banishing old pains. They're just adorable little guys. Asterion plays for Gruggy and his brothers, and the kobolds drag you into their dancing as well. You stay up until their bedtime, enjoying Asterion's music and your guests' company. When the time comes at last to return to your quarters, Asterion makes a brief stop at the reception desk. He tells you to go on ahead while he sorts out some paperwork. Exhausted from your cavorting, you leave the Minotaur to his work in favor of settling in for a night of rest. Do we ever really get rest around here? Wolf 1, the state of nature. Oh, I'm excited. I want a wolfie. A new day's dawning is a curious thing. To many, the rosy border between one day and the next signifies hope, the endless possibility that the future holds, and the potential for a fresh start, whatever one's mistakes. Given infinite time, even the most accursed of men might find peace and work towards bettering themselves and the world around them. However, few have had such a luxury as infinite time. To many, many more, it has no meaning at all, as irrelevant as the lapsing of one moment into the next. Solitary, poor, brutish, nasty, and short though life may be in the state of nature, it is nonetheless pure in its simplicity. Surrender is never an option in the war of all against all, whatever vain ideas man may harbor to the contrary. One can no more remove themselves from the state of nature than they can gouge out their own stomach so as not to feel hungry. Again, wow, this guy, you could write poetry, man, like... Chef's kiss. Such is life for man, the most spoiled and miserable of all nature's children. He has at his fingertips more knowledge, more pleasure, more comfort and convenience than his ancestors of eras past could dream of. And when his decadent excesses catch up with him, however briefly, he plays the victim and whines to all that can hear. Occasionally one grows sick of hurting others in innocuous ways and grows more amenable to hurting them directly. One grows sick of pretending that the steak at the grocery store wasn't once a living cow. One grows sick of callow morality, of pretense, of artifice, and of structure. One wants to experience life for what it is, warts and all, without the need to justify oneself, moralize the amoral, or seek meaning in the meaningless. It is a simple truth that life requires sacrifice in one form or another. Even the plants which draw nutrition from the soil, the air, the light, and water must fight for those resources amongst themselves in subtle ways. None are exempt from the struggle for existence, nor from the inevitable death and decay that follows. By that measure, all are equal. For all that walk, fly, swim, crawl, drift, or otherwise locomote upon the earth, dissatisfaction and change are the only constants. From that harsh mother, necessity springs progress in all its forms. For a forest, progress is a matter of succession, of hardy pioneer species like moss and lichen colonizing an uninhabitable area before rendering themselves obsolete by their own impact upon the world around them. Built upon the backs of these tiny creatures, a mighty forest may rise on barren land. An apex community will eventually emerge that bears no replacement, at least until the next disturbance forces the cycle to begin anew. Usually a fire, a storm, something that rips things up. For man, progress is not altogether too dissimilar. It is the decaying of ideas, of skills, and the people who practice them, in favor of newer and more efficient ways in tireless pursuit of an apex that shall never arrive. It is the replacement of the craftsman's workshop with the assembly line, of singular tasks with divisions of labor, of fathers with sons and mothers with daughters. It is the succession of flesh with wood, with stone, with metal. It is the supplanting of copper with bronze, of bronze with iron, of iron with steel, and of steel with carbon nanofiber and silicon circuitry. This is the forest in which man lives, the forest he has made for himself, which consumes and then discards him. A living forest of metal and plastic, rubber and concrete, art and artifice, heedless of tiny tribulations and silent sacrifices, of insignificant things like moss and lichen and people. Progress leaves man behind. It usurps his works, wastes his life, and plunders his happiness from under him, surely as the passage of days into weeks, months, years, and decades wrecks his body with age. As communities in various stages of advancement butt against one another, inequity and inequality take root and flourish as beautifully as any poison flower, and as natural as the innate differences between predator and prey. This got a little deep all of a sudden. Like, are we having an existential crisis on late-stage capitalism and the futility of man? For such animals, progress is simple. It is merely earning the right to exist for another day, the right to live purposefully. To be cannot be taken away except with a bloody fight for supremacy, tooth and claw, hoof and horn. Or, of course, by the whims of fate, disturbances, and disasters of all kind. Animals don't have to think about things like that. Men do. Let us turn our attention now back to nature. He's so cute. Here we see a lone male wolf greeting the new day with a yawn. From the cave in which he has slept, he awakes to tittering birdsong, utterly unconcerned with anything resembling the human condition, modernity, or the creeping existential despair that accompany them. Yeah, you're gonna have to work at a hotel soon, buddy, though. His lot is a simple one, but not without its fair share of difficulties. Bereft of a pack to support him, he must find food for himself, with his own strength and cunning. And when prey is often larger than you, hunting them alone can be a dangerous prospect, if not an outright impossibility. He can be thankful, however, small and medium-sized game are relatively plentiful in the area in which he lives. Likewise, so long as he does not encroach too boldly upon the territory of the other wolves in the area, he is free to scavenge leftover meat from their kills for as long as it is available. He sticks to the fringes as best he can, scent marking just enough trees to ward off the occasional trespasser. He knows full well that to cross into the heart of another's territory means a fight to the death, as do the other wolves. If he is found out and cannot beat the odds, he will have to abandon his home. Occasionally, an older female past her breeding years will wander in, or a younger wolf dispersing from their parents' pack, but the chances of being adopted are slim to none for any and all wanderers. They can only follow their nose to an unoccupied area and hope that the game there can sustain them, as he has done. Once he has satisfied his need for food and water, he will patrol his little territory until he tires. This is the nature of his existence as a wolf. Okay, so what makes this wolf a candidate for the hotel? Wolves, like men, always take more than they need to survive, and as the conditions of survival grow ever more stringent, so too does their greed grow in kind. A pack's territory naturally expands when food is scarce and contracts when it is plentiful. He sniffs the air and grumbles lowly to himself, incensed at the presence of other wolves nearby. He has smelled them before, but never this close, never this frequently, and never as flagrant in their disregard for his land claim. He is, as they are, as used to the cycle of feast and famine as one can be. He was built to endure long periods of starvation. Even so, it has been a week since he last fed on anything of substance, and hunger gnaws him to the bones. It's giving the vibes. There was this book series called The Sight that was literally just about wolves. There was The Sight and Fell. And this is reminding me a bit of that. A good book series. I remember reading it in elementary school or something. Circumstances have forced him to take greater and greater risks to keep himself alive. Now he must hunt large prey, ungulates like moose and bison. Fully grown, they weigh a minimum of quadruple what he does. Their struggling could injure, even kill him with ease. However, all is not lost. In times like these, he finds hope in every drop of urine and nugget of dung that stains the purity of the snowy landscape with the scent of prey. With every exhale, he finds reason to despair, as weighty fatigue escapes his body in a haggard puff of insubstantial mist. As he takes a particularly deep breath, he knows that his limit draws near. He needs a kill, and soon. He feels the frigid air invade his lungs, momentarily numbing him to the pain of hunger, but only for a moment. His chest swells, full to bursting, as though trying to drink down every hint of odor. There is a group of elk currently meandering through the nearby clearing. His chosen quarry is among them. He has stalked them for the past 4 days, patiently wearing down an old female straggler at the edge of her herd. Each time he gets close, she bolts to safety, but he follows at his own pace, slow and implacable as death, waiting for her to inevitably tire and fall behind again. Without fresh foliage on which to feed, she has grown weak, as exhausted from the long winter and the chase through deep snow as he is. Weakness exists in any group. Be it by a herd of herbivores or a pack of predators, weakness is meant to be exploited. Though he is but a brute beast, he calculates his angle of attack with the precision and accuracy of any human mathematician. Once the herd departs this clearing, he will strike. In the open plains, he knows that a healthy, full-grown elk can handily outrun even the fastest wolf. Turning the terrain instead to his advantage was beaten into him long ago by the harshness of the wild. He remembers when a layer of thicker ice forms at the top of a deep snowbank, hoofed animals cannot stand on it, but wolves can. His paws, wide and flat like snowshoes, help to distribute his weight so he does not face as much resistance while running. He starts to close the distance. The herd will spook, and if all goes well, his target will fall. Every ounce of energy is precious with the prospect of starvation so close, but he won't have a better chance than this. He has no choice, as it has been all his life. It is do or die. His muscles tense as he prepares to make his move, readying himself for the explosive bout of exercise which he must endure if he is to survive. The snapping of a twig trodden underfoot is the sound by which his frail hope shatters. A mated pair of young wolves has alerted the herd to their presence, and the old wolf must make his mad rush to keep up or forever lose his chance. They're off in a flash, bodies heaving with the strain of sudden, desperate movement in the unfavorable terrain. The interloping pair circles to try and flank the she-elf, but they move too soon. Though she is old and hungry, she will fight to live with all she has left. The female, lighter than her mate, moves in front to separate the panicking cow from her herd. The young male follows from behind, aiming for her vitals. The old wolf maintains a careful distance, close enough to keep up, but not so close as to get truly involved. He continues to conserve his strength until the most critical moment. The scent of blood reaches his sensitive nose as he lopes through the high snowdrifts. As his eyes catch up, he sees that the young male has made a hit on the cow's flank just shy of her perineum, too shallow to be fatal. Had he landed it cleanly, the fight would already be over. The elk would, after a few minutes, die of blood loss or shock. As is, the young male must try again. Impatient to deal a deadlier blow, he takes a nasty kick on the second attempt as the cow continues to flail. It's hard to assess the damage, but he's bleeding badly. He gets back up in short order, forcing himself onward despite the evident pain. The hunt is not over so long as he has the strength to stand. The young female keeps steady in her attempt to force the elk back, trying to use the old wolf's location at one side to her advantage. She is clever. Even if he will not join her in the hunt, so long as the other cow wishes to avoid him, he can be used to their advantage. In response, the older male begins to maneuver towards the younger one, refusing to play her game. She will steer the cow towards them both, or nowhere at all. Though the younger male is wary of the stranger closing the distance, his injuries force him to pick his battle. He hasn't the strength to fight both the elder male and the elk. Necessity sometimes makes for strange bedfellows, particularly among such social creatures as wolves. The next pass is their last chance to make the kill. The younger male's injury will not permit another attempt, nor will the older one's hunger allow him the chance to track this elk again. Their bodies coil, sharp and ready for what is to come. The old wolf pauses to consider the momentary alliance as the she-wolf steers the elk back towards them in a wide circle. In the short term, would they allow him to eat if he helps them? In the long term, could the three of them be a pack? Could he fight them off if they refused him a share of the kill? Dimly, he remembers his first pack, his Saturnine sire and his many, many litter mates. He makes his choice. The old wolf knows what he must do. A pack is a family, nothing less and nothing more. With fury colder than the alpine air that buffets them all, he resolves to make the interlopers pay, for invading his territory and for the ruination of many days' labor. They will become his prey in the stead of the cow. Their flesh shall become his. He will, as the uncaring forest, consume them to prolong his life. Even if he had the time and energy to track this elk again, he will brook no further insult from these impudent whelps. He knows, as a wolf, that if he does not snuff out the competition, they will eventually breed and usurp what little he has once their pups come of age. There is no warning as he shoulder charges the other male, knocking him prone right as the elk makes her pass. She tramples him in her escape. He does not stir from the bloody heap in which he lies, letting out only weak whimpers as the pain finally overtakes him. The hunt is over. The she-elk lives to graze another day. As his mate realizes what has happened, she disengages from the chase and turns towards the elder male, jowls parted, hackles raised. He matches her throaty growl with one of his own before making a careful change of position. The two circle one another in a deadly dance, waiting for the best moment to strike. Though the she-wolf is clever, her opponent is larger and more experienced than her. He knows his territory and has defended it from her for years. He knew that this fight would come. Their match is short-lived. The she-wolf's patience runs out first, and she makes her reckless charge. He draws on his reserves and feints, fastening his jaws around her throat with brutal efficiency. Please! I was not expecting that brutal of a sound. Though she desperately claws at him, he does not release his toothy grip on her larynx until she too goes still. He has triumphed. Well, that was an adventure. There can be no hard feelings in contests of survival. Both parties are entitled to secure victory by any means with which nature saw fit to endow them. Small comfort though it might be to whomever comes up short, they can at least be said to have done everything within their power to survive. A brute beast has no capacity for entitlement, no sense of wounded betrayal that indifferent fate or capricious chance should raise one up and lay another low. For a time, even man knew that clear truth and accepted it. Whatever would be, would be. Whatever was right. As he catches his breath, his opponent's blood still dripping from his jaws, he surveys the scene before him. 2 young wolves, one dead and the other dying. The older male can now see that the younger one's jaw was broken in his struggle with the cow. He can hardly breathe, coughing bloody sputum into the upheaved snow. Even had he made the kill, he would not have survived, doomed to a slow and painful demise by starvation or internal bleeding. The old wolf opens his mouth once more and grants the second intruder the only mercy he can, a quick death. Content with his kill, he buries one in the snow and drags the other a short distance away towards a more defensible position near the tree line. Though he is monstrously hungry, he hesitates for just a moment, an unseen stressor making his stomach twinge. He sinks to his haunches as though he had swallowed a stone. He has forgotten something. Eventually, however, need overcomes him. He tears through the fat, through the muscle, and into the organs, glutting himself to the point of discomfort before stalking back to his den to sleep. His dreams are fitful and violent. The familiar walls of his cave seem to close in, dark and oppressive as the ruins of a collapsing house. A sudden sound, a rumble of thunder jolts him from his meal, and the night wind begins to gust as though crying out for blood. He runs with his siblings in such a chaotic flurry of limbs that none can tell where one body begins and another ends. They scramble hand over foot and paw over paw towards any perceived place of safety. Narrow passages of stone lead them out into pasture land, and then into rolling hills. He wants to vomit, but nothing comes, no matter how sick he feels. His pointed ears twitch as he hears a cry in the night. No one is quite sure who began it, but none can resist its call. Until their howling drowns out the cutting wind and crashing lightning, they will not stop. Together they defy the storm. One by one they scatter and disperse, drifting away like dandelion seeds on the wind. Their nightly howls grow fainter and fainter in his ears, until all is silent. A wet gurgle from his stomach resounds off the stone walls, and he wakes from his nightmare. The territory he risked his life to defend seems suddenly both too big and too small for him. Trapped with his thoughts, he realizes that he tires of being alone. He misses the warmth of his youthful days in the countryside with his brothers and the safety of his father's den. He will find a new pack. When a wolf is stalking prey, they must travel 30 miles on foot in a single day. When one's prey is companionship, however, a host of other difficulties arise. Under normal circumstances, a wolf dispersing from its natal pack may travel nearly 600 miles before finding a suitable mate and an area in which to establish themselves. However, circumstances are anything but normal for this lone male wolf. He does not seek a mate as such, nor does he wish to sire pups, even though the season is right for it. He wants a friend. He has time to think while he digests his meal, inasmuch as wolves are capable of thinking. He casts his mind back as far as it will go and contemplates how to satiate this vague and alien gnawing, different from the usual emptiness of his belly. However, despite this sudden disquiet, he cannot leave so abruptly. To set out aimlessly wandering in times of such scarcity would be nothing short of suicide. Even without horns to gore him or hooves to trample in, his incorporeal prey can still kill. As with any hunt, the slightest misstep could prove fatal. Spring is still some weeks away. Dull thoughts, diffuse and meandering, come to him in erratic spurs while he waits for its approach. When he was younger, he lived close to a human settlement. He remembers that they had beasts which freely moved among them. Lowing animals with horns and hooves, fowl fatter and more succulent from their indolence than any he could catch, and squealing pink things which lacked the ferocious temperament and sharp tusks of their wild cousins. Humans always were much looser with their social hierarchies than most species. By all accounts, they will adopt nearly anything so long as the creature in question has something to offer them in return. He knows of the arrangement in abstract terms. The human provides food and shelter to the beast in exchange for their loyalty or labor. He can work with that. Still, it will be easier said than done. While there was a brief time in ages past that a wolf and human might consider working together on a mad survivalist impulse, that window closed long before he was born. Likewise, he has lived in isolation for so long that he has no bearings, no frame of reference that he may use to orient himself towards the nearest village. Well, I found there's this guy in a red shirt named Jean who might be able to help you. If he is to find one, he must sniff it out. He leaves his den one warm spring day, belly full and spirits high, so deep in the wild, smoke is easy to notice once he picks up the scent or sees a lingering plume. He finds only false positives at first, a few otherwise abandoned campsites with no humans to speak of or old cigarette butts discarded by some errant human hunter. However, the weather has been clear, and the snowmelt has made the muddy ground perfect for preserving footprints. He stalks off at a middling pace, not close enough to alert any potential humans to his presence, but not far enough to lose their trail. By the time he happens upon a settlement, it has been many days since he first set out. Flanked on one side by mountains and another by shoreline, the village is in an evident state of decay. Rusty buildings house aging people slowly warping and deteriorating like the wood of their homes. Forced by isolation to live off the land, they are the closest to the wolf's lifestyle. Among them, he will seek a kindred spirit. There cannot be more than 100 people in the entire town. Its construction bespeaks a long history of subsistent living. Built around a single central street that winds and slopes awkwardly with the uneven landscape, neighborhoods are small and erratically laid out, with so much space between each house that they can hardly be said to exist at all. He will watch them from afar, to scout the herd for viable targets. As with other groups he has hunted, the old and the very young will be the most vulnerable to his natural weapons. An old man could always use for a trusty guard dog, whether for something as mundane as fetching his slippers or as dramatic as keeping thieves out during the night. In a town like this, so far from civilization, it is easy to imagine someone blind or senile adopting him by mistake. Likewise, a young child might not know any better than to approach a wild wolf, thinking to pet him. He would naturally have to contend with the suspicions of the child's parents, but so long as he remains suitably docile, he might be able to win them over, given time. Before long, he's attuned himself to the podunk hamlet's rhythm of life. In the morning, there's the clamor of heavy-booted hunters and fishermen tromping off into the tundra in search of food. Later in the day, the unsubtle crunch of disturbed snow as homebodies tend to their steads and their less able relatives. And as the sky darkens, the unintelligible nighttime jabber of human tongues wagging, scratching their social itches before retreating back to their homes. His first contact with a human, as a result, lacks any flair for theatrics. It is a simple moment of direct eye contact on one of his nightly rambles around the tiny township, which shunts him into the spotlight. The human, mundane as it sounds, is simply taking out their trash when they chance upon one another in the evening dusk. Without so much as an exchange of fearful shouts for warning growls, the two hunters acknowledge one another and back slowly away to resume their respective lives. The wolf takes the human's gift to him, the bag of refuse that was cast aside, and drags it some distance away before tearing it open to satiate himself on scraps. It hasn't the freshness or flavor of the meat he is used to, but it is still an easier meal than he has come by in a long time. How could you say no to that face? Look at him, he just needs an ear scratch. He is thankful for it. Emboldened by what he perceives to be a positive response, he marks the spot in his memory so he may begin his courtship with humanity. Though he cannot understand their words, he is upon their lips within a day, the crystallization of weeks of vague paranoia into present and palpable psychosis. He has ceased to be a known unknown, a silhouette stalking the shadowy corners of their perception, and as such they cannot ignore him any longer. I hope to God you don't get in any kind of trouble. The stage is set for history to repeat, and none can be quite sure of the outcome. Ancient memories are dredged to the surface, warring for supremacy, his dream of easy meals and comfortable cohabitation against the primal fear which he has, for the most part, separated their species, let me try that one more time. Ancient memories are dredged to the surface, warring for supremacy, his dream of easy meals and comfortable cohabitation against the primal fear which has, for the most part, separated their species since the Neolithic age. The hunt is on. The wolf awakens before dawn. He bids farewell to the fading starlight, his jaws open, loosing a half-audible yawn as he rouses himself from his makeshift shelter, a rocky overhang in which he'd waited out the evening rain. His brief period of careful observation has told him that the humans will leave their own dens soon after the sun comes up, and to make use of every hour of daylight they can. Thankfully, he is not bound by such lame senses. He would have perished long ago were he so poor-eyed, deaf-eared, and given to hyposmia as men. We do sleep a lot. Still, man has other virtues, chief among them an avarice which bends nature to better suit his addled body. As such, an appeal to that greed will be the wolf's chosen diplomatic tool in the pursuit of this alliance of convenience. He has, in recognition of the human's gift, thought to reciprocate by sharing some of his most recent kill, a lone buck that met its fate between his jaws after being driven from its herd. After tearing a haunch from its carcass to arm his snare, he deposits the meat at the edge of his acquaintance's territory. He will wait a respectable distance away, both to gauge the gift's reception and to prevent other predators from fouling his offering. If all goes well, they may make further exchanges of this sort in the future. It will take time before they are familiar enough to fully accept one another, but he hopes to persist until he has earned his keep, until he is allowed to add his scent mark to their own without fear of bloody reprisal. Oh, you poor idiot. Arcane as the ways of men might be to the lupine mind, he cannot mistake the human silhouette looking down at where he stands from the second floor of its cave. He marvels at the frailty of his would-be master, bare and undisguised. He sees it back away, raising a forelimb towards its snub muzzle, and hears it begin shuffling around behind the thin walls as the change in angle obscures his line of sight. The nature of its barks are foreign to him, but he can sense hushed excitement in its tone. His breast swells at the prospect that his quest for companionship may end with the same lack of fanfare with which it began. Then, of course, all hell breaks loose. And I'm going to pause the episode here because this is getting very, very long. Thank you guys so much for watching. We are going to see how this poor wolf story turns out in the next episode. Goodbye!